Hi friends, welcome back to the IRL with Lex podcast. I'm your host Lex, and this is a place where we talk about all things fitness, health, and lifestyle with a real and raw perspective. Today's episode is going to be about a plethora of things, basically relationships, comparison, decision making when you're desperate, insecurity, all those things, and how those things can kind of infiltrate your entire life. But before we get into the episode, you already know that we're going to do the question of the week, and this one is from Avery. She said, I've been eating well and not binged in a long time, but I allow cheat meals here and there. How do I know the difference between overeating and binging? Sometimes I will graze the pantry in my cheat meal day and eat a tablespoon of trail mix, a bite of pizza, etc., just picking at things I've been wanting while dieting. I get anxious that I was binging or just satisfying cravings. This is actually a great question because yesterday was a day that I kind of grazed a lot, and used to this would trigger me to binge eat, but once you realize that it's not binge eating and also that you're not bad for being hungrier on these days, there is a difference between physical hunger and psychological hunger. I'm getting my nutrition certification, and this is something that I've been learning about, but basically your brain can also send you hunger signals, and things that you are restricting your brain will want and crave. And so having these things, quote, grazing, and if you don't know what grazing is, basically it's just whenever you're kind of eating consistently throughout the whole day, like just a little bit of this, a little bit of that throughout the whole day, does not mean that you're binge eating or overeating, okay? But also, I want to ask why you don't allow yourself to have these things while you are, quote, dieting, because these things are not bad. Like, the amount of food I ate yesterday was much more than I usually eat, and it wasn't because I was restricting, because I wasn't, but it's just because I was more hungry. And then actually turns out I started my period this morning, so it all kind of made sense. But whenever you allow yourself the unconditional permission to eat, it doesn't matter if you've moved that day or not. It doesn't matter if that food is, quote, good or bad. It kind of creates an environment where you don't want these foods or crave these foods as intensely because they are not deemed good or bad. They are just there, and you're allowed to have them if you want them. And so I also want you to know that it was probably not binge eating. Binge eating usually happens in episodes, and you feel out of control. You literally feel as though you don't have body autonomy and you don't have control. So that's what binge eating is. Binge eating is not overeating. There's a very big difference. And if you guys ever want an entire episode on that, I can 100% do that. But also, today is the first day that I'm actually recording this for YouTube. You should go look at it. I have a cool mic. I'm on my pink couch in our new apartment, and it's a fun, cute little hangout session. I'm very excited to be able to post these on YouTube now if you want to go check them out. Also, I always have timestamps in the description, just so if there's ever a topic you want to skip over or you just want to see what the whole episode's going to be about, you can. But without further ado, let's get real. So the other day I was on a walk and I was thinking about my ex and I's relationship in the past, and I've only ever had one other boyfriend before him, but anytime I was talking to someone, like ever going through a talking phase or any of that, and getting to know someone, after I got to know them for a little while, immediately the fear of abandonment would come into my mind and start to influence my decisions. And that's an issue because that makes you insecure. And one of the things about desperation is it's rooted in fear. And I'm going to give you guys a little anecdote of how this could have honestly been one of the things that ruined my relationship. So one night, about 3 months into my last relationship, I was sitting on the floor after a disagreement with my boyfriend at the time, and I was sobbing, begging him not to break up with me. And if you guys know me, you guys know that I preach that we do not beg for anything. Girls, we do not beg for our boundaries to be respected. We do not beg to be respected. We do not beg, because whatever is truly meant for you, you won't have to beg for the bare minimum. You'll never have to beg for the bare minimum. So One of the things I do struggle with, though, is making decisions during that, or my actions being influenced by desperation. And we could all sit here and say that it's because of my childhood trauma and all that, but just because I did go through things as a child that would make me think that I'm not deserving of love or deserving of somebody who wants me or respects me doesn't mean that I have to live the rest of my life that way, and so on. And so I was thinking about that on my walk and about how bad I felt for that version of myself, the version of me 2 months ago that was sitting on the floor sobbing because she was so scared to be abandoned or to be left. And the reason I was so desperate in that moment was because I was so terrified to be left again. And looking back, I know how afraid I was because I have always dealt with abandonment. So I'll give you guys a little backstory basically on me. So as a child, I have never really talked about my whole entire birth, childhood story because I'm not really allowed to. But basically, I birth mom left when I was a kid. Never really had a relationship with her. I didn't know that my stepmom wasn't my real mom. That's a whole thing. So then when I was 11, I found out that my stepmom was not my real mom. And then she left. And I was always a mama's girl. I grew up kind of terrified of men. And then also, before that, my childhood best friend sexually assaulted me. She was a girl when I was 7. So from the bat, relationships have always been very difficult for me because I was so desperate to be loved and to be wanted and to not be left that I was willing to sacrifice all of my values in order to be wanted. Just like with my best friend who sexually assaulted me, I didn't know what had happened at the time. I just remember I no longer felt comfortable around her and I was scared. But I didn't tell anybody what happened because my family was such good friends with their families. My family doesn't even know this happened. I didn't tell anybody because I didn't want anybody to, go after her or say anything to her. But once my first stepmom left and I was alone again, because me and my dad were never really that close, I was terrified because I'd been told that my stepmom left because of me. And so I didn't really have a lot of friends at the time either because, again, making friends was difficult for me since, the stuff with my first best friend that happened. But ever since my first stepmom left, there was this root of the fear of abandonment in the back of my mind that if I was not good enough, then nobody would want me and nobody would stay. And I want you to know that if you have experienced something like this, or you're going through this, or you have the fear of abandonment, the fear of commitment because you're afraid to be left, I want you to know that you're not stuck in that and you are able to get past that and overcome that, okay? And so, of course, in that moment, the version of me that was sitting in the floor looking at my ex, crying, begging him not to leave me, it's just because the root of all of my relationships in the past, there has been that underlying fear that I would be left if I was not good enough. And he knew that because I explained that to him, and he did use that night over my head a lot, which I just kind of hate because he was such a good person that was not a good reflection of who he was. But this created a ritual and a pattern in my relationships where I was either afraid to be left, and if I was so afraid to be left, I would eventually self-sabotage and leave before they could leave me. And so I know that this might be it'd be like, how is this possible? But this was the root of my eating disorder, because in my brain, I was like, if I'm perfect, then nobody will leave me. And I thought that my personality obviously was lacking since everybody in my life previously had left. So I thought that if my body was good enough, then people wouldn't want to leave me. And so that's why I'm also a perfectionist, because if I feel as though if I'm not perfect, then people won't have a reason to stay. And that's why I'm afraid to let people see me when I'm not my best, because I don't want them to think that I have flaws. That's why I don't ask for help, so that people don't see me as a burden. And it does infiltrate almost every area of my life. And thankfully, I've gone to a lot of therapy, so it's not as detrimental. However, it still matters. And that's why I want to make an entire episode on this, because this does honestly impact so much of my life. And I know that no experience is original, so know that it cannot just be me. But also, I just want you to understand the way that this is healthy, because just because you understand your behaviors does not mean your behaviors are healthy, but understanding your actions and behaviors does mean that you can alter them and edit them and revise them to be something that is healthy and does serve you. So just because I'm aware of my abandonment issues and my commitment issues, that does not mean that they're okay. Me being aware of my toxic behaviors does not make them acceptable, but it does make them manageable and alterable. And so I know that you might be like, Alexis, this makes no sense, but the reason I want to talk about this is because I think that in our society, we are all so desperate to be wanted and to be loved that it shows because of how insecure we all are. And that's all insecurity is the feeling or thought that everyone is searching for your flaws instead of seeing you for your strengths or for your beauty. But newsflash, nobody sees you for the first time and is looking for what is wrong with you. And I think that most of us feel that way. Most of us feel as though the first time people see us, or the first people's perception of us, is what's wrong with us, and that they are searching for everything that's not right, and they're searching for everything that we aren't instead of everything that we are. And I could sit here on my pink couch pedestal and be like, it's so easy to, not care about what people think about you, blah, blah, blah. And it's not, because sadly, we don't live in a world where people's opinions do not matter. People's opinions do matter, and we all know that, okay? But once you realize that everybody is in their own head just as much as you are, you begin to see that when you meet somebody, you aren't looking for what's wrong with them. You're not looking for their flaws. You don't look at the tag hanging outside of their shirt. You don't look if one of their teeth are a little bit bigger than the other. You're not looking at their hair to see if it's a little bit greasy. You're not looking at their clothes if it's this slightly unmatched color of pink. Like, you don't care, because that's not what we look for. We look for companionship. And other people, we don't look to immediately compare. Now, if you approach all your relationships and rooting them in comparison instead of companionship, then you're going to approach all interactions with insecurity, and you're going to approach everyone with a sense of inferiority instead of searching for pure interaction. And I know right now all the topics seem a little bit all over the place, but you just gotta, this is the first really real raw episode that I've done where I haven't had really a script, because I don't want that to be this. I don't want the podcast to be a place where you come and it's, some very edited, produced thing. I want this to feel like you're on FaceTime with somebody who understands you. I want this to feel like a FaceTime call with your best friend, or honestly, just an escape from the highly marketed, strategized age of social media. And I'm not trying to be quirky or different. I'm just trying to be honest, and I'm trying to be somebody that you can relate to, or somebody that just makes you feel not alone. So I don't want you to think that I have dang, this episode is not as good as the other ones. Well, if you want a podcast where it's highly scripted, all that stuff. I'm sure that there are people that can do that for you, but that's just not something or the person I aim to be moving forward. And so the issue with comparison and companionship is this is so easily applied to our lives because you have the people that have the large friend groups, but honestly, they really only have those groups of friends because they're all comparing themselves to one another. A true friendship, you're not comparing yourself, you are complimenting each other. You are complimenting each other's best qualities and bringing those out. That's companionship, that's friendship, that's a relationship. Relationships are not supposed to be transactional. You should not feel as though if you don't offer anything, then you're not worthy in a relationship, because that's not how relationships work. I grew up thinking that I was not allowed to be in relationships or have relationships with people if they were not getting something from me. If I was not offering a certain value to them, then I thought that I was not worthy, and that's just not true. Relationships were never meant to be transactional. You're not supposed to earn somebody's love. You're not supposed to earn somebody's acceptance and desire to be with you. That's where desperation can come in and ruin everything. But relationships are not work. Relationships should not be a job. And I know a lot of people think that relationships should be a job, but they're not a job. A job is something that you show up for, you clock in, and you get compensated or paid. That is not a relationship, because relationships are not transactional. And the only reason I've been able to come to realize this, I might get emotional. I'm going to try not to get emotional. But is because of Annabelle. Because we've almost been friends for a year now. I'm going to try not to cry. I don't even know if she watches these. I hope that she doesn't watch this one though, because I'm going to get emotional. But we've been friends for almost a year now, which is crazy to think. But I'm going to see her for her birthday next weekend. And literally, I have never had a friend that has treated me better than she has. And I feel as though I offer nothing to her. Like, I don't feel like I really offer her a lot, or I feel like she just gives to me and I feel like I give her nothing. But I'm going to see her for her birthday next weekend, and I feel so honored but also so surprised. Like, whenever she asked me to come to LA to spend her birthday with her, like, I just felt confused. I was like, why me? Like, why do you want me? And it surprises me sometimes that she feels the same way about me that I feel about her. She just wants to be around me because she just likes my presence, and that's something that has never happened to me before. And so whenever you have people that genuinely love you and that genuinely just want to be in your presence and don't want anything from you, you begin to realize that the relationships in the past, I'm crying. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, you guys. But you begin to realize that you sitting and begging or asking what you can do better in those relationships, those people never wanted you. All they ever wanted was something that you could provide for them or the way that you made them feel. Because anybody can make you feel a certain way for a certain period of time, but not everybody can be you. Everybody can't get what you offer from somebody else. And that's why my love language is not gifts or, acts of service. Anybody can buy me this gift. Anybody can do this act of service, but not anybody can be that person. Not anybody can give me those words of affirmation. Not anybody can give me their quality time. Sorry, I don't know why I'm so emotional. But that's why relationships are not transactional, because anybody can offer a service. Anybody can buy something. Anybody can process a transaction, but not everybody can be you. Okay? So all those past relationships that you were having to offer a value, to be wanted, those were jobs you were clocking into. You were putting on your work personality. You were doing your best, trying to receive gold stars, whenever that's not what a relationship is supposed to be. Relationships are supposed to be something that encourage you and uplift you, not something that drains you or makes you feel less than when you leave a conversation with the other person. Because if that's what all your relationships are, eventually you're going to become introverted, you're going to want to isolate yourself. If you have only relationships like this, you're going to become secluded because you're going to assume, based on prior knowledge, that that's what all relationships are. And this is just true because we only know what we have experienced. You can't be like, well, I know other relationships are different because that's not what I've experienced. Like, humans base all of their knowledge and their actions on prior experience. So of course, if you've never had a real and healthy relationship, platonically and romantically, like honestly, this episode is really more so platonic than romantic, because I'm in a time in my life where I'm trying to prioritize my platonic relationships because those to me matter more, and I'm better at loving people platonically than romantically. But we only know what we have experienced, so we all know that if you have had bad relationships in the past, you're going to make future decisions based off of those past experiences. And I also know that you might be like, Alexis, this episode was supposed to be about desperation and decision making. I'm getting there. We had to take you on a little magic fairy ride on the magic school bus before we got there, okay? And apparently I needed to cry. Sorry. But I know that it's hard to see how desperation mixes in with this, but whenever you become desperate to be wanted, I might cry again. I'm not gonna lie. But whenever you become so desperate to be wanted or to have friends or anything of the matter, this is whenever it starts to affect your relationships, because it makes you think that you're broken somehow, that you haven't found anybody that doesn't expect anything of you, or you haven't found people that are okay with you at a baseline and don't need you to perform to be wanted. And when you're desperate to be wanted, of course, you're going to be around people that there are guidelines and regulations and rules for their love for you. I don't know why I'm crying again. I'm sorry. Because they can't love you as you are, and you're not enough for them. And they only love you if you offer something. And so if you're desperate, of course you're going to be okay with that. Of course you're going to be okay with people only wanting you if you can offer something. And this is when I'm going to get very passionate about this, especially for my ladies. Men will do this to you. Men will, convince you to send them nudes, convince you to have sex with them if you don't want to, convince you to do things with them if you don't want to, because you think that that's the only way that you deserve to be loved, or that's the only way that you'll be loved is if you do these things. And I can promise you that it's not. I have been pressured to try and do these things so many times, and I haven't, and I have been left time and time again because I refuse to give up that part of myself that I am not willing to give up. And I'm so thankful that I have clung to that. But it breaks my heart that we live in a society where our choices and our decisions and our morals are not respected. And I don't know why I'm being so emotional. I'm so sorry. But I know that there are women out there that have been heartbroken because men have made them so desperate to be loved that men have, or people have just been able to manipulate you so easily and take advantage of you because you were so desperate to be loved that you were willing to do anything to keep that love. And that's not love. That is not love. Real love is Jesus. I actually didn't have any intention of speaking about this, but real love is, I don't want to get emotional, but real love is Jesus dying on the cross, even though I am an awful human being, and I suck, and I fail every day, I sin every day, I have nothing to offer him, and he still loves me. He still provides for me. He will never leave me. He will never abandon me. He will never abandon you. He never asks anything of you except for you to literally come as you are. He doesn't want you to clock in and clock out. He actually despises when you try to make transactions with him because your transactions mean nothing to him, because he has given you your life. Ugh. Hold. If you are watching this on YouTube right now, I look like a child. Anyways. But relationships that are transactional suck because you think that it's okay because at least they want you. It doesn't matter that you're only doing this because you're afraid that they'll leave you if you're not performing or supplying them with whatever you like. You are the reason. This is an issue because they are only with you because you're providing them with a service. And when you stop providing them with this service, they're not going to want you anymore, because eventually it's going to get to the point where you don't have the energy to perform and show up anymore. And so you're going to have to sacrifice one of those things. You're going to have to either sacrifice the service you're providing or yourself. And more often than not, if they only want you because of what you're providing, then they're not going to want you anymore. And so when you can no longer offer the value, they're going to leave you, and they didn't want you. They just wanted a warm body that provided them value. And so they don't care if you bring them anything if somebody actually wants you. If somebody actually wants you for who you are, they will not care if you show up for your best or your worst. They will not care. They will not care if you're struggling. Oh, I'm going to cry again. Hold. Just like with Annabelle. Literally throughout the whole entire breakup, I remember one day I called her whenever I figured out everything about my ex. All the lies. And I called her because I figured out that she was going to come surprise me. She was going to fly here for my birthday and surprise me. And I remember I look a mess. I'm sobbing. I had no clue what was going on in my life anymore. Because kind of like my whole life had been flipped upside down. And she did not care that I wasn't put together. She did not care that I was a mess and that I was falling apart. She sat there and loved me. And was there for me. And that's what a real relationship is. I, in that moment, was desperate to be loved and to be wanted. And she did not manipulate that. She did not use that to her advantage. I wasn't desperate to perform for her. I was just desperate to be seen and to be heard and to be loved. And that's what real companionship is. She could have sat there and, taken advantage of the moment. If it was a unhealthy friendship, I would have sat there and been like, well, this doesn't happen to her. I can't reach out to her because her life is perfect. I'm going to look like insecure and bad and all these things. No. A real relationship, you should be able to talk to these people about anything, and they will be there for you. Like surface level or deep, like it won't matter. And so when you make decisions when you're desperate, this is like decisions whenever, if you're wanting to lose weight and you are at rock bottom and you randomly just decide that you are going to buy a $500 course because you're so desperate that you're willing to do anything, spend any amount of money to change. Like, don't make decisions when you're desperate because it's not who you are. This is kind of like your reptilian fight or flight brain. And decisions when you're desperate are not a reflection of your higher self. It's basically the child version of you. And so relationships rooted in insecurity and fear will never last because you are afraid that they will leave because there is a fear that you're not good enough at a baseline. And so I recently moved and I've been trying to put myself out there and make friends, which is something that's quite terrifying for me since I do struggle with friends. And I think that thinking this has hurt me because I haven't had good friendships in the past, but I've already made a friend. And we went to Pilates yesterday, which killed me, by the way. but it was so good and so lovely because we had such a good time, and she invited me to go do something again this weekend. And it was just like a little blessing that allowed me to realize that I'm not a bad person and I'm not bad at a baseline. And I struggle with thinking that I'm a bad person a lot. I don't know if I'm going to cry again. Ooh, obviously the podcast is my therapy, you guys. But I'm not a bad person. And of course, like with abandonment and all that, you think that you're a bad person because you think everybody's leaving you because you're bad. But it was lovely to see that I wasn't a bad person and that I could be good on a platonic level, because mostly I'm saying all these things again on a platonic level because I am starting to value my friendships more than, romantic relationships. And I've only ever been in 2 relationships romantically, and they did not go the best, so don't take advice from me on those things. But I'm very good at keeping my boundaries in romantic relationships because of one thing I'm good at, and I'm very good at keeping my boundaries. And I do respect myself. But with the friendships, it's so odd to be wanted without offering something, because just like this girl that I became friends with and did Pilates with yesterday, I just showed up where she told me to, and I just enjoyed my time and I enjoyed being in the presence. And after this, she asked me if I wanted to go do something this weekend, and I was like, so this is what it's like to have friends. This is what it's like for people to want you without performing and without having to show up and provide a service. And like I said, I have been getting emotional this whole time because I've never really had that, and I've always thought as a kid growing up that I was broken or something, because I was always told that people left because of me. And so the past few weeks after the breakup and after moving, seeing that I can have relationships and that I can have friends has honestly changed my life, because it's allowed me to see that I'm not bad and I'm not broken, and all the decisions I was making when I was desperate to be loved and so desperate for somebody to just want me, that's not who I was. And also, I'm not mad at myself for making those decisions when I was desperate, because I shouldn't be mad at myself, because I just wanted to be loved, and that's okay. Wanting to be loved is okay. But yeah, that's pretty much my mental state the past few weeks. And also, we're going to do the best and worst part. Best part of my week, that I'm going to see Annabelle next week. We scheduled that 2 days ago. Worst part of my week, started my period for the second time in I just got off of it 8 days ago and I'm on it again. Probably why I'm so emotional, And then my goal for next week is to upload a vlog on YouTube. This is going to go on YouTube. I'm actually really proud of this little setup, okay? But yeah, if you guys could rate the podcast, that'd be amazing. We're almost at 600 reviews. And again, let me know if you like this style of podcast. I would really like to know, because I love being able to talk very vulnerably with you guys and all of that. But with all of that being said, I'm so freaking grateful for each and every one of you. I love you, and I hope that you have a great week. Stay buff and bubbly.